So, BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions here, and this is a bit impromptu because last night, Kamen Rider Girls Remix 2, aka Kamen Rider Majade with Girls Remix, just got announced last night. I wrote the script on Sunday, sorry, life got in the way. And I'm still shocked the first one was almost never covered on YouTube outside of fan music videos, and I want to talk about this announcement. If you got this far in the video, type Writer Heroines Month, heroines, like hero but with the women, in the comments. And yeah, it's going to be written by Hiroyuki Uchida and directed by Koichi Sakamoto. Both of whom worked on the first Girls Remix series are, as it's truly called, Kamen Rider Jean x Kamen Rider Aguilera with Girls Remix. Yeah, we can see why the Toei Tokusatsu fan club exclusive crossover web series between Kamen Rider Revice and several heroines from past installments is just called Girls Remix for short. If I was a skilled YouTuber, I'd probably make some Ann Knuckles joke, am I right? Anyway, in the first installment, after Kamen Rider Valkyrie ends up finding about an evil organization, the first female heroine fought with her rider way back in the past, has now resurfaced. Akiko from Kamen Rider Double assembled the Girls Remix, a team of Kamen Rider heroines from Reiwa and Heisei to team up and stop the electronic wave humanoid. So to hear that the first female secondary rider is getting to be the star of her own miniseries, that's the sequel, is pretty damn fitting. I have a video in the works about Renee's development and storyline, but one problem I had with the first crossover movie, web series, the crossover movie between Geats and Gotchard was that Majade becoming a writer had her focus moment, but didn't really get to bond with the past writers besides Ace since her debut had to focus on her exclusively. There was a few moments, but granted her debut was cool, but alongside the fact that she should have played a part in helping Gotchard and Geats access their movie forms to go along with that, I felt she could have done a bit more. Hell, in her season, she had a fair number of girls she bounced off of. Renge, Athropos, Lachesis, although I wish those two could have had a bit more of a conversation. And with Gav not having any female writers yet, hopefully, manifesting, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how she bounces off the rest of the characters. Plus, I'm glad Uchida's writing this series. While I'm not part of the critics who have this weird belief the staff hated Majade when we know from the interviews and production notes they fought for her to be the secondary writer so bad that Hasegawa was going to do what he usually does in making fun of toxic systems of life by having the drive originally meant for a guy but she steal it for herself and make it her own. But Hiroyuki Uchida, feels like gets the brunt of the criticism towards people who feel like she got dirty. Granted, if you look at the episodes he did write, Episode 1 and 2 had Renee helping out Hotaru in both conflicts. Episode 7 and 8 had her and Athropos building up a proper setup to their rivalry. Episode 16 through 18 had her drainage from the movie, her getting frozen in stone with everyone else by Gaon, and then Fire Gotchard's debut where she was a damsel with the other students, so I can agree there somewhat. Episode 24 and 25, she fought her teacher with her fellow writers and was ultimately fine. Episodes 32 through 35 show why Uchida's pretty solid for crossovers, though I felt like Legend and Renee could have had a really deeper conversation about things, especially since she was written to have been mind-jacked by Girl Glare only to be saved by Lachesis again. Episodes 38 to 39 focuses on Gotchard, and he wrote the pep talk between Renee and Renge, and Lachesis coming to save her from Kloto. Hence why I wish those two interacted more. Then in episodes 42 and 43, Gotchard and Valvrad got to go to Sabimaru's village, while Renee, Renge, and Minato got frozen in those episodes. Which in hindsight is a shame because an introvert like her bonding with Alumi who couldn't speak really writes itself. And he worked on the finale. But clearly, he, Hasegawa, and Akiko worked on the series for the most part together, so this is a chance to prove to people that he doesn't hate her character. But going back to Girls Remix, the fun appeal of the special is that we have characters from 9 different series to come together and take on an evil organization. I'll get into that when I redo my review for that special, but we ended up with what a crossover is supposed to do. It brings all these characters and lets them interact, bond, make jokes, have cool nods and references, and since this is an action show, lets them bond and fight together while progressing the story. And to be honest, I can see the argument for that story being cliche, but I liked it. I haven't seen Revice, though thanks to Discourse research on the episode I did watch, Hana and Saku's relationship and struggle was one of the best parts of the show, though from what I found, Hana's search for her actual family and who raised her and who was her birth parents was never explored. So having Sakura and Hana struggle with Sakura generally wanting to find her real family family, and Hana being upset that Sakura doesn't consider her a real family actually addressed that plot point and had the two clash with Hana being manipulated to join Black Tackle in pursuit of that goal, only to end up with them making amends and the girls helping them come together and save another girl who was just another victim like Hana. So I'll talk about that movie more in the future, but because Revice was the season that was airing, and with Gov's female writer count being 0, who better to have Renee as the star of the next one, since the last story she was in was Graduations, where she leaves to go to England, which is a perfect hook. Her story in Godchild was all about her finding her independence, her love for alchemy again, gaining respect for chemies, and eventually having the courage to stand up for herself as a heroine and save the person she never wanted to hurt. So now that her story is over for now, she's going to be focused on learning to revive more to help revive Atropos. This is the perfect opportunity to let her take the lead with the other girls. After all, Uchida was able to have Sakura and Hana be the stars while having the other writers help them out, while everyone still had their own agency and characterization. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how he approaches that with her character. Plus, one of Uchida's strengths as a writer is that he's really good at merging different series lore to tie it into the main character's arc. So far, we've only had 4 members of the original Girls Remix team, which is under scrutiny, but I will go into detail about that later. In terms of writers, we have Reiko/Sabala and Hina/Aguilera, who are always cool to see back. May Angela loves Kamen Rider and is probably going to come back if and whenever she can, given a chance. And Hana has her development from Revise, as well as the last special, since she's working with the Blue Bird organization, and it looks like we're starting with those 3. And I was a little worried since the web series shows only those 3 with Akiko from Kamen Rider Double and Sawa from Kamen Rider Build returning, both of whom I'm happy to see, by the way. Sawa was probably one of the more interesting writer girls given her backstory and ties to one of the villains, plus she's always got a fun dynamic with other characters, and Akiko is the freaking leader of the club and the leader of her own detective agency. Kinda. But I believe the original series announced 3 people at the start, then 2 others, and finally the last character. So I'm guessing we're either going to have a team of 7 to 10 members at worst. So the question becomes, who do I think is going to return, and who do I want to see show up? See, my pipe dream is that we get the 5 lead writer girls, or at least 1 female writer from each Reiwa season show up. Valkyrie, Sabala, Jean, Nago, and Majade all together in one epic fight scene. But that's going to be really hard because Yu as actress, I hear, is too busy, and we'll talk about why she barely had a cameo in the first Girls remix for that video. Ayaka Imoto, Sakura's actress, I know has a show that just came out, but I feel like she's willing to return if she can. And Neon's actress also has a show that's airing, so if production finished, there's a good chance she could show up. Anyway, I hope Yua can show up because her character got done dirty a lot, and her getting involved in wanting to actually participate after the first Girls remix, plus bonding with Renee over their reserved nature and not being tied down to the organization is a great character interaction right there. Sakura, I think, could work well with anyone, and it's canon Renee actually practiced martial arts in order to improve when she became a writer in the Hyper Battle special. So it would be really funny if it turned out the book she used could also turn out to be a manual that Sakura also learned from, or one that was written by people who trained at her dojo, or former people that Sakura had to learn from. And Nago, aka Neon, got along really well with Hotaro, and I think her and Renee sharing a conversation would be really cool, since Renee's stoic and reserved nature would fit well with Neon being this positive person, mixed in the fact that she's an artificial human. Plus, Majade would naturally want to thank her for holding the line with Keiwa so she become a Jade in the process. But in terms of everyone else, I think we should have Sachika from Gav show up, at least if the characters show up at her shop. That would be a cool cameo, or if Glada played a role. With Gotchard, it depends on if Renee's story is about reviving his sisters, but it would be nice to see if Kyoko or Renge show up for a bit. For Geats, Neon is the big one, but I'd be okay with seeing anyone. If Letter shows up somehow, I'm gonna tweak. Sara would be nice to see, especially since she didn't use a form buckle. And Lopo/Sai would probably be one of the best options since she did return for the other Geats movie. For Saber, why the heck didn't Mei show up in the series? Like, what, was she busy or something? I love for her to be involved in some way in the story. I don't think Tsuyuki Omi is going to return because her actress retired, but I think her still showing up to the first Girls remix was a solid highlight for a character, so if she doesn't return, I can respect that, no problems, but I would still be happy if she did show up. For Xaid, I think Poppy would come back, but if she can't, Actually letting Nico use something that makes her an official Kamen Rider would be nice for a change, especially since from what I heard and research, she did play a role in Outsiders. I'm surprised Drive didn't have any representation since Rina also showed up in the revised Ortega versus George special, and that ended up tying into Outsiders. If Kiriko's actress is busy too, that sucks, but I'd be down for either of them to return. For Guy, well, Marika's dead, but reviving her again would be cool since Yoko's actress did return for Go Rider. Wizard would be a pipe dream because Mayu and Mage would be perfect since her season is all about using rings and magic to fight phantom pains, and even an artificial creature involved with the Philosopher's Stone, and she became the first city's main wizard at the end of the series, even though she got bodied in the Guy Wizard crossover, but semantics. But unfortunately, her actress retired, which, damn it. We need someone from Forze to return in some capacity. Like, Gotthard and Forze get called very similar to one another, while still being unique from one another. And I know Yuki's actress might be hard given the cult thing, even though she's working for the agency. But Nana Shako would also be a great writer representative, and I'd be happy to see Tomoko or Miyu show up again if their actors are willing to come back. O's I haven't watched, but I feel like people would be happy to see Hina again. Plus, she does have super strength, so just like the other writer girls who aren't writers, she could actually still be useful in fight scenes, like the others were. Plus, I know some people would want to see Erika Satonaka return. I feel like Feme from Ryuki should return. Discounting Agito's sister, she's technically the first female Kamen Rider, and it would be a shame if she never showed up because for the writer Ryuki's time, her actress was pregnant so she couldn't return, but that also means her character technically survived. That's probably going to be weird to explain because in Ryuki, characters after the fight don't have their decks. So unless someone made a wish to only let the heroic riders keep their decks while surviving, it would be pretty hard to explain, especially since Dragon Knight had a more logical explanation for the decks to be used without the other world shenanigans, since it wasn't just tied to one character. Though it would be funny if they got a Dragon Knight representative. And finally, a new gen tackle. Like, one of the problems people had with the first film was that despite doing everything to homage stronger, they didn't really go all the way with it, and given that we had Black Tackle, combined with Kaguya basically being a new decade, I think either making the first Black Tackle the new tackle, or having a new generation tackle would be a solid idea, although I know it'd be hard to execute. Still, let me know if you're excited for this crossover. Who would you want to see? Do you think I'm being too optimistic, or if I'm setting myself up too high, or if you didn't even like the first one? If you watched the first one, and let me know if you also plan on checking it out, as well as your expectations. So, BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.